There's a line in the 12-step literature that talks about, we found here what we could find nowhere else. Someone who knew the depth of our pain, right? And that's really what it is. It's pain, it's suffering, it's emotions that are unresolved. So if anything, when you experience a depressive episode, this is a message from Allah, from your emotions, from deep within you, to say something in your life needs to change. And it may be something as small as resolving something that has been left unresolved for years, a past hurt, anger towards someone, or whatever,
As promised, we're visiting today life coach, sex addiction specialist, process addiction specialist, Ridhwaan Harnekar, and we'll be interviewing him today and to discuss the issue of depression. Come and join me.
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I'm Ridhwaan Harnekar. I'm a life coach, keynote speaker, and sex addiction specialist. So, depression, it turns intelligent, kind people into zombies who can't wash a dish or change their socks. It affects the ability to think clearly, to feel anything, to ascribe value to your lifelong passions. Your relative good fortune, it scoops out your normal, healthy ability to cope with bad days and bad news and replaces it with an unrecognizable sludge that finds no pleasure, no delight, no point in anything. You alienate your friends because you can't comfort yourself socially. You risk your job because you can't concentrate. You live in moderate squalor because you have no energy to stand up, let alone take out the garbage. You become pathetic and you know it, and you have no capacity to stop this downward plunge, this downward spiral. You have no perspective, no emotional reserves, no faith that it will get better, so you feel guilty and ashamed of your inability to deal with life like a regular human being, which exacerbates the depression and the isolation. So that's just something I found online that I really related to it. I struggle with depression I have struggled with depression for a long time, and it's something I've been working through, and I think it's an especially important topic for us to talk about. In terms of what it is, it in many ways can be understood as a mood disorder. If you think about the best way to talk about this, really to identify some of the symptoms, right? So that listlessness, that lack of energy, the lack of interest in life, the inability to experience joy, feeling lethargic, sleeping excessively, mood fluctuations, because depression can tie into bipolar, where there's mania and depression. So days when you feel just amazing, and then days where you feel like terrible, and it doesn't mean that you're going to feel amazing on top of the world. There are stages or degrees of bipolar. Then it affects your eating as well. Some people comfort eat because it feels so terrible, and so you comfort eat, you binge eat, and then there are people just like lose their appetites completely. There are feelings of guilt and shame, like I read out earlier. Self-esteem crashing is another big one. A lack of personal care and personal hygiene it's just so super important, because with that listlessness, with that why should I get out of bed in the morning question, there were times when for me a win for the day would be to get out of bed before 12. That was just like, oh my god, I won today, I got out of bed. Showering and brushing my teeth was just like an additional win. But that's how bad it can get, and it can get even worse than that. It can be coupled with suicidal thoughts. There's just a whole array of things that go with it. It's a very complex disease. There's no one identifiable source for what causes it or anything like that. There's lots of aspects to it. Another side effect is like a drop in your libido or your sex drive. And this isn't, you have to understand that these aren't universal and globally true for everybody. You may experience varying degrees of this. People who experience bouts of depression coupled with sexual compulsivity might indulge excessively in sex to just feel something. Because when you're depressed, you feel numb. It's hard to feel joy. It's hard to feel hurt. It's hard to feel anything. There are biochemical imbalances. So in some cases, depression has to be treated with medication. But even on the medication point, you can go pharmaceutical, you can go herbal. There's research into like use of cannabis oil. But these are all things that need to be explored and understood, and because you don't want to be going down a path that potentially affects other areas of your life. So for instance, if you're prone to substance abuse or cross addiction or addictive behavior, then cannabis oil is probably not the way for you to go. But it depends what works for you, and you have to explore. A really important thing to couple it with is some sort of therapy, some sort of counseling, or sharing, even if it's just attending a support group or talking to your friends about it, talking to a coach, talking to really anyone who has capacity to listen and to understand. Very often we turn to people just because they're close to us, not because they're the right people to turn to. And that's an important distinction to make, especially when it comes to turn to family, because they treat it like, oh, it's something you can just get over, or they'll try and say things that are motivating. They'll send you internet memes on how you can do anything and be anyone and achieve all you set your mind to, and it's insane, because that's not what you're feeling in that moment. You're so down in the dumps. It's a win to get out of bed. What are you talking about? Climbing mountains and being amazing. So motivation, I tend to steer away from all talk of motivation, and rather to look at structural changes. One of the most important things that I think helped me through dealing with depression is the shift I made around how I saw it. That it wasn't a burden, it wasn't this disease that I had to try and cure as fast as possible. I tried to pay my way through it with medication and therapy, and I must have spent like 200,000 just on treatment, and it didn't really get me very far. Because ultimately it comes down to what you're willing to do about it. It comes down to how much change you're willing to make. No one can make that change for you. So the first change I made was to view it as a gift. That Allah has put me in this space for a reason, that there is a purpose to this pain that I'm feeling, and that I really needed to tap into that and understand it. One of the benefits that came out of it from embracing this depression is my ability to speak to you about it today, to share my experience, to share some of the struggles and strengths and hope, so that this doesn't become something that you have to wander through blindly. Another thing is to have an intention. We're often not able to dig all the way down to action, but the very least we can do is think about an intention that we want to have, in dealing with this. One of the things I experienced after, just turning to everyone that I thought I could turn to, and just being like utterly disappointed in my experiences of seeking help, was I was sitting in the mosque one day, in Stehman Road Mosque, and Sheikh Riyad Halls was the imam there at the time, and I couldn't tell you anything of what he said that day except 2 lines. He quoted this hadith Qudsi, and the hadith goes that I'm in the service of my slave as long as he is in the service of his fellow man. And I thought, wow, if that's what it takes, right, to be to get Allah's assistance, then that's one of the intentions that I'm setting. And through that, I started looking not so much at Western theory or the Western approach to psychology and depression and that kind of thing, but rather into the deeper, more spiritual understanding of what depression is, the causes, and more importantly, the treatment of it, especially from an Islamic point of view, because there's so much that we have in terms of sacred knowledge that deals with the subject that we're just like completely oblivious to. Don't lose hope. Don't lose hope. Most importantly, in Allah, right? Because Allah put you in the situation, He can take you out of it. You're there for a reason. Get to know the reason. Don't avoid this. Share your struggle with someone. Talk about it. It's super important to talk about it. You know, if you think of the 12-step program, there are no professionals involved in the 12-step program. The healing happens through shared experience, people talking about it, people understanding, but people who have similar struggles. You know, there's a line in the 12-step literature that talks about, we found here what we could find nowhere else. Someone who knew the depth of our pain, right? And that's really what it is. It's pain, it's suffering, it's emotions that are unresolved. So if anything, when you experience a depressive episode, this is a message from, you know, from Allah, from your emotions, from deep within you, to say something in your life needs to change. And it may be something as small as resolving something that has been left unresolved for years, you know, a past hurt, a, you know, anger towards someone, or whatever, you know. So use it as an opportunity. Connect to Allah. This is like the most important thing. Don't rely on others, rely on Allah. Then connect to others. It's so important to have to surround yourself with people who display the qualities and the characteristics, especially noble characteristics, that you want to embody. So I was in a very bad space, a very dark space, and I went and I spoke to someone about it, a teacher, and he held my hand. I went up and I asked him a question, and he shook my hand, and then he held it, you know. And someone else came to ask him a question immediately while I was speaking to him. So he pulled me to the side to say, as if to say, don't go yet, I'm going to respond to you, let me just respond to this person. And for a few minutes he just held my hand, and I realized in that moment how I hadn't experienced human connection, human touch, like for years. And how many of us, you know, yearn for this experience of human touch, but we don't get it. And these are things we can experience on a daily basis. If you think about going to mosque, you greet the person next to you, you greet the person, like those are two hands you've shaken for the day. Sometimes you embrace each other, you know. And this is the importance of surrounding yourself with people who understand the nature of the journey and who can support you in it. People who have good thought of Allah, because when you're in that dark space and you think, you know, like, why has Allah done this to me? Is there even any hope? What is the point? You know, these are genuine questions, genuine concerns we have. You know, it's hard to think good of Allah in those moments. And so look to others who see hope in Allah, who turn to Allah on the regular, and you go, you know what, at least if someone else is doing, perhaps I could do it too. Perhaps all I could do is say Ameen to his du'as, you know. And this is again the importance of attaching ourselves to teachers. They make du'a for you. They have concern for you. I haven't come across a teacher yet who, it doesn't matter if months have passed, will come to me and ask me, how are you doing now? And as if to pick up on the concern exactly where I had last seen him, you know. And so in their concern, there's dua, there is mahabba, there's love in that, there's connection. So connect to people, and again, share. Don't hide it.